All right, we are back with my guest, Pat Shand, and we're going to be talking about the X-Files episode Humbug, which is episode 20 from season 2. And I love this episode. It's got such a great cast. Of course, first and foremost, Jim Rose, of the Jim Rose Traveling Sideshow, and the Enigma, who is called the Conundrum in the episode, and as well as the legendary Vincent Schiavelli, who everybody knows from Ghost, and God knows how many other films did character work in, and also from Twin Peaks. The little backwards talking guy, who's Michael J. Anderson, who is just such a great actor. And his banter with Mulder in this episode is absolutely priceless. I forgot how funny this fucking episode is.
Yeah. It had I've not seen much of the X-Files. I watched the first 2 seasons in full with my dad, and then we kind of fell off.
Yeah.
But this one, it does ring a bell as being one of those kind of zanier monster of the week ones.
Yeah, and that's what I really like the X-Files for. I particularly by the time the first movie came out, I was kind of like done with the mythology of it. It's like, either they stop the alien invasion or they don't, but the Monster of the Week episodes, I really love. And the episode starts off with a guy who's an alligator man, who has ichthyosis, which is the condition that Killer Croc, the Batman villain, has. Although I don't know what the deal with Killer Croc is in the DC universe now, because I think he's got a little more than ichthyosis.
He's pretty much just a crocodile now.
Yeah, he's not like somebody who suffers from ichthyosis. He's like literally a crocodile. It's like King Shark. As the legendary Gail Simone wrote, "I'm a shark." So like Scully is, of course, body shaming right off the bat. Starts the interview with the sheriff. When they go and meet the sheriff, she's talking about the murder. How the alligator man gets murdered, and he lives in a village that's all people who are carnival and sideshow workers, or family or former carnival and sideshow workers. And Scully's talking with the sheriff, and she's immediately like, well, they're deformed, of course they're monsters.
I feel like I know the show ran for a long time, but I feel like Scully and Mulder kind of feel like plot devices here. They don't really, like, obviously they have their character traits of Mulder, he wants to believe. Scully doesn't believe, even though she's seen it face to face many, many times. She'll never believe, even though it's been drilled into her head that supernatural things exist. But here they feel like vehicles for what's happening and jokes, rather than people kind of going through the situation. So she does come across as uncharacteristically callous here in multiple parts.
Yeah, she really does. Surprisingly so.
Even in the funeral scene, where the guy
Jim Rose,
he does the escape act and digs himself out of the grave. Scully and Mulder are just like totally unfazed, and they're just there for that joke beat. It's like, if I were there, dude, and that happened, I'll be like, what? Where am I right now?
But it's Mulder and Scully, so they're kind of like taking it in stride.
That's true.
So then they go and they go and talk to this guy Hepcat, who runs I guess he creates gaffes like the Fiji Mermaid and stuff like that, and and he's got a fun house, and he's like, it's not a fun house, it's a tabernacle of horror.
Yeah.
And the sheriff's like, it's a fun house.
I mean, he's right though, dude. I would imagine paying to go into a fun house. That's if he stepped right there, man. I couldn't imagine something scarier than being in a fun house in the dark, dude. It's just
yeah, absolutely,
it's not for me,
man. And that's the thing is because all the really great fun houses like that, they're leaving you to your own imagination is what they're doing.
Yeah, and my imagination can get pretty dark, man.
Yeah. All right, so Mulder and Scully check into a hotel, and we are greeted by Mr. Nutt, who is played by the aforementioned Michael J. Anderson. and right off the bat, he is just righteous and fucking indignant.
Yeah.
Which is how he plays throughout the entire episode, and he's wonderful at it. I'm sure he's not like that at all. I believe he passed, but I'm sure that he was not like that at all in real life. And Vincent Schiavelli, takes them to their room, and he's got a conjoined twin, but one that is, I forget the exact type, but it's basically just a body that's coming out of his abdomen. Yeah,
it's like the nurse from South Park.
Yes. Well, that's, I believe, where they might have stolen that. The South Park might have stolen that from this episode.
Gotcha.
And played by Vincent Schiavelli, as I said, is just wonderful. He says, Mr. Nutt gave him a job because doing what he did was beneath his beneath his dignity, and he's like, and now I carry other people's luggage. And I'm like, what's wrong with fucking carrying like X-Files? But X-Files has got all sorts of problematic shit.
It's funny though, that bit that you mentioned about Mr. Nutt, about how he takes such offense at the idea that he would be part of this tribe. He kind of reminds me of myself in that he is a guy who, in context of him living in that town, looks like he might be with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a stretch.
Right. So like me, dude, recently I've been in this situation where I go to Target, and as I'm shopping, someone, dude, every single time says, "Excuse me, do you work here?" And I'm like, "No." And I have to realize, I'm wearing a maroon hoodie and khakis.
Yeah, so you kind of stick out.
Yeah, so I do feel like the Mr. Nutt in that situation where, like, I take umbrage, but, like, I got to admit, I do fit in,
Absolutely. So now the next person that they brace is Jim Rose, who we saw bursting out of the ground at the funeral for the Alligator Man earlier on in the episode. And his collaborator, who they call the Conundrum in this episode of the X-Files, and his real name is the Enigma, who, by the way, I met at, it wasn't a comic convention, it was actually a tattoo show that I was doing with my friend Norm Hood, who owns Chimera Publishing, who sells science fiction and fantasy fine art prints. He does very, very well at tattoo shows, shockingly enough. And I met the Enigma, and he's the nicest guy. He's just so sweet, and his spouse was wonderful, and they did a show together where they were juggling chainsaws, and he actually, he was doing sword swallowing with replica lightsabers and stuff like that. It's pretty awesome. But he's a really genuinely nice guy, So after they talk to the Enigma and Jim Rose, who is a blockhead, and the Enigma claims to be a geek, that he will eat anything, so on and so forth. And Scully pulls a little bit of sleight of hand after the Enigma gets fed a mouthful of cockroaches. Oh no, actually crickets and she takes one of the crickets. Jim Rose offers her the container with the live crickets, and she takes one and pops it in her mouth.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Yeah, and then later on, it turns out it's sleight of hand, and she actually did not. Which I was actually thinking that maybe she's just like, I'm a fucking MD. I've eaten a bug before.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who would do it. They're not me, but
yeah, I mean, I'm not big on live insects, but obviously there's a significant portion of the world that, eats crickets.
Would you eat like a I know people have either like chocolate covered ones or they have ones that are like seasoned like fucking Doritos.
The most recent ones I had were like a spicy Cajun.
So you have had it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah. And as a kid, for shock value, I used to eat ants all the time.
Off the ground, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They're cleaner than a banana.
Yeah, I've taken like as a kid, I haven't thought about it in years, but if I were to like really think back, I'd probably taken an ant or two to the dome. Not one of the big fat ones though, just one of the little tiny hitters.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, Scully goes off on her own, and she goes and checks out an exhibit, which is a museum of curiosities.
Yeah,
and it's actually the part of the episode that's the creepiest, and it's done really well. The owner of the curiosity shop is obviously deformed, and they never show you him straight on. Scully is seeing what he looks like, but the audience never sees him straight on. You just see his reflections in mirrors.
Right.
And it's a really, really well shot scene. And once again, like you said, the scary thing about the funhouse, Scully walks into this darkened room to see this exhibit that Barnum called The Great Mystery, I think it is. And she goes in after paying an additional $5. And she goes in, and the doors close behind her. And as the doors close behind her, she goes over, and there's a treasure chest under a spotlight. And as she lifts the treasure chest up, we see that it is empty, and the exit door opens. And it's once again just another scam. But like that moment, I remember seeing that episode the first time I saw it. It didn't happen, when I rewatched it because I was familiar with it. But I remember being like really genuinely creeped out and tweaked when Scully steps into that darkened room.
So here's a question. Did you watch this as it came out, or did you discover it later on, or what?
I started watching The X-Files probably late into season 2 because my good friend Stu Goldstein loved it.
Gotcha.
And you know what? Actually, I might have started watching it early. Because it became a thing. I would go over to Stu's house and we would watch The X-Files. It became a weekly thing with us. Yeah. And it's hilarious because he had recorded every episode on VHS. Stu was a guest of the show previously, but he had recorded every episode on VHS. And even when he stopped watching it, the series, he stopped watching towards after the Robert Patrick season. He's like, I still record it because I'm a completist and I have to have every episode on VHS.
so he wanted to have the tapes but not watch it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
God bless Stewie. And I can almost guarantee Stewie's probably still got those VHS tapes. We were housemates for a couple of years, and he had the most spectacular collection of DVDs and books on cinema, particularly, weird cinema.
Yeah.
Genre stuff. Yeah.
That's cool.
One of my favorite people on the planet. And my mother's, of course. Basically, Mulder heads back at some point, is going over to Scully's cabin, and he discovers Mr. Nutt crawling around underneath there, and there's a gay panic joke, but actually a funny one, where Mr. Nutt says that, Agent Mulder, you'd